All right, people, so I'll begin from back here just because Ryan's the one I've got to keep an eye on, obviously. They're the most critical ones. All right, so I'll introduce myself first. So I'm Stephen Kolber. I'm at Brunswick Secondary College in Melbourne, which is there. I'm a literacy improvement teacher. I do a bit of assessment and reporting, and I teach English, EAL, and history, and also like low literacy kids. And so I don't do anything to do with technology. So everything I'm talking about is just what I do when I teach rather than something that I have to push on to staff and kind of anything like that. That's all my things that no one cares about. So what we're going to talk about is why should we do it? I'm going to compare it to light boards, which may be irrelevant. Does anyone have a light board? Oh, you fools, no, just kidding. We'll fly over that bit because this is sort of like not aimed at anyone except these two people, maybe. And then I'll show you sort of how to do it.
Have it available.
Oh, yeah, me too. Unused collecting dust. Is yours the same? Okay, good. Me too. And then we're going to give it a go. So basically, there'll be choice points when you'll decide whether you want me to talk more or less, and that'll depend on how much time we have to do stuff because I don't actually like talking as much as other people. I'd rather you actually learn something instead. So firstly, we're going to have 3 little minutes. I'm going to throw it straight over to you. This is something, a taxonomy I made, to use a fancy word, of all the types of video production that I've seen at, I've only been to one RESCON, but all the people that are presenting here use. Take a couple of minutes, look over it. Blue means you don't have to edit to do it, so that's easier, lower barrier to entry, and green means you do have to edit, which means higher barrier to entry. So have a look, and then we'll talk about what you reckon. If you want to know more about any of them or you're interested in any particular topics there. Swivel, that's one, yeah, that's an easy one to cover off, especially because we've got one here.
Is the whiteboard and phone the one, the little iPad with the Apple Pen?
I would call that just a screen capture, but a slick looking screen, but yeah.
Not whiteboard and phone?
Whiteboard's just whiteboard and phone, like as simple as that. I just need to pause the presentation, which on my computer always auto-plays for some reason. So, since we are a small group, any of those you're particularly interested in? Have you not heard of any of them? Are there any you want to circle and like we actually discuss? Or do you want me to just kind of jump straight to green screen and pretend that all the others don't exist? And,
No,
do that.
Is screen capture like screencast-matic?
Yes.
Okay, but whiteboard and phone is just like actually videoing your phone, just videoing you doing. Oh,
yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So swivel, that'll be good.
All right. So where are we? So.
And this DSLR and tripod with directional mic, that would be great.
Cool. Yep. That's more or less part of that. So I'm jumping around my own presentation already. On the back's a whole bunch of research, but if I give you 2 things to read, that's probably a bad decision. So flip it back over. Forget that there's anything there. All right. So at this point, would you like me to, 1, go into detail about all these things, 2, go into not detail about all these things and go through them quickly, or 3, just start doing green screen stuff?
Please go into a bit of, from a personal point of view, please go through some of the things, the swivel. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
How do we feel about agreeing to?
What do you want to
Sure,
jump over them all?
All right.
Touch on everything and what
Yeah.
you said we done.
All right.
Deep.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go through, just as a bit of a like formatting thing, for each of these there's a little graph. Very simple, cost is how much it costs, complexity is how complex it is. So if you're rolling this out to your staff or to other teachers, you probably want it to be cheap, preferably free, and low complexity, but since we're at a flipped learning conference, we're trying to reach every student every day, there's a bit of like, based on the research that Steve was talking about and the research I've done, you can do better. It's not just a matter of you're doing videos and job done. There's differing levels of goodness. So this is our first tier. You're looking at in-device or connecting a device. So what you have in front of you. Why does it keep doing that? Anyone? Why? Why is it jumping? All right. So this is basically you're looking in your device or adding a device to your laptop, which is what we've all got. So screen capture. If anyone was in Steve Griffith's session earlier, he went through all of these. Screen capture, PowerPoint, face to camera, document camera. Any of those you're interested in knowing more about?
I'd like to do one with face, and the actual document you're looking at all on screen.
Sure. So that's what we call picture-in-picture, PIP. Well, not we, that's what the world calls it. I didn't make it up. And the reason that I do green screen is essentially because research shows us that most of the time students are looking at the teacher's face. And if you're doing picture-in-picture, that means by definition you're this tiny box in the corner. And when I started out, that's what I did too. I had a bad webcam, so you couldn't actually see my face or engage with my emotions or anything. I was just kind of, oh, it's me, and I'm really shy. He was learning. And then my wife would walk past and my voice would crack, and it was very embarrassing and nervous. But as we automatically click through it for some reason, so green screen gets rid of that box. There is no box, it's all the same. And then sort of as I've become more confident in this, the box has grown, and I'm like, I'm much bigger in the frame because I've since learnt that that's the most important thing. Pete Whiting, who I was speaking to just before, said basically when you do a presentation, it's you that's the presentation, not the presentation, and the same should apply to flipped learning. Like if the presentation is taking up the whole thing, then that's not really what we want to be doing. Does that make sense? All right, so you can get an external document camera. Steve down the hall has got a small little fold-uppy one. This is the fancy one that I've got. You can get a higher model that is wireless, but no one needs that unless they want to really show off. What I actually do with my staff is you just get them to get their iPhones. You get a couple of plastic chairs like we all have in our schools. Get a meter ruler, put it across. That's your document camera. If teachers actually use that, then maybe one day you buy one of those is sort of my idea. Feel free to stop me at any point.
Sorry,
Thoughts?
so you put the two chairs here. And
Yep,
the ruler
so
and the phone on it, to understand that.
bang bang, meter
Chair
ruler,
on the desk.
iPhone on
Chair
top,
the desk.
worksheet just there.
Oh, okay.
They start doing it. Or you can spend like $6 on eBay, get one of those sort of flexible arms that does that. That's pretty much all I talk to my staff about. And then green screen and everything else is like, we have one special room that we're working on now that has all of that stuff, but I don't actually think that many people will get into it yet.
Sorry to ask such a very basic question, but a green screen, is that in order to remove everything behind you, and then you can actually...
Yeah.
Yes, and then you
So-
can put anything else back on, or...
Me talking, and then we remove all the green, and then whatever's behind me is the video. Yeah? I'll show you an example in a moment. Light boards and whiteboards. So this guy just goes around doing even lower than my phone on a chair thing. He just writes on a whiteboard, puts his iPhone there, and then starts talking. Again, that's if I was training staff who had never done anything before, that's what I'd start with, and I'd just say, that's better than nothing. Then, of course, when you start to think about it, if you're doing this, like they are in this picture, that's obviously not best practice. If you're looking at emotions, relationships, connections, like we all are, a light board becomes a lot better. Research proves it. It's Fiorella and Mayer who are like the only references you'll ever hear in terms of video learning, pretty much. They're it. They've been doing it since 1999, and the people in this conference still haven't caught up to what they've said, and I would include myself in that as well. Especially when Steve said, how much do we suck? I was like, a fair bit, if you read their papers. Then you've got your custom light boards, and I actually put their faces there because these are the three people. This is Joel, who's like the pariah of the scene. That's Steve, and that's Steve Crapnell. Together, the two bald ones and me are the three Steves. It's a big deal. Not really. You can do one like that one there for about $100. Mine cost about $600 because I'm 2 meters tall, so you needed a full whiteboard and complex things. Then, if you really want to spend $5,000, and I know you all do, you buy one of these, and then it works a lot better. And is not complex, but to me, these two things, that much money and that much setup, is a massive barrier to everyone. So unless you have one already, like you two do, I don't think it's kind of something we should be selling. It's like, yeah, just make one of these. Just, I'm not a builder. I had my dad build mine because I'm embarrassingly unmanly, and he built it for me, and we went, cool, that works. All right, number 3. So classroom observation. So this is your swivel. This is your Eddie Wu. The only tricky part is you either need to use the Eddie Wu effect, which is have a class of angels who are completely silent, That's trick number one.
It helps.
Do not ask any questions.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'll have to edit you out later.
Yeah, I'm recording.
Yeah.
because I've tried it, and you get a lot of, like I say, all right, kids, I'm recording this, and they're like, they were silent, and then they're sort of going, penis, and just whispering, and then you don't hear it when you're in the moment, and then you watch it back, and you just hear them swearing into the microphone or whatever. So, is anyone interested in actually doing that in their class, in their school?
I could, look, some of my seniors' classes are that good, as good as his, but there's, when there's only 8 in a class,
Yeah.
but otherwise,
Alex has
never.
got some opinion on that from you in terms of the length of the video. And
It's a lot of dead time.
Yeah, exactly. So he records his lesson and then uploads it, and the question just has to be, who wants to watch 12 minutes of maths? Not me, some people. But according to some people here say 5 to 6 minutes is the cutoff, but YouTube says it's 3 minutes and like 24 seconds, and they would know. So to me, if you can teach something that quickly, hey?
I've heard that 2 to 3 minutes
Yeah.
is sufficient.
Yeah, anything past 3:30, I'd be really worried about, but that's just me. So the easy way to do it is you get a swivel because it's got a wireless microphone that I'm probably bumping and ruining the recording of, or you need to then invest in a wireless microphone or directional mics and whatever. But that's what you're interested in. We'll talk about it later. This is what I've done in the past. That's a Surface Pro. That's a really small microphone, iPhone, and that's a swivel. We just got 2 at our school because I led someone into deciding that it was important. But you can do it for free with what you've got and a little tripod. Right, this is where we get to Tier 4, which I think is the best. This guy is not here, but if he was, he'd probably be presenting with me or down the hall, and we'd have very different ideas, but we both do green screen as our approach. Why is it good? Also, that's my little cat. Oh, it's big now. So this is my old setup. I used that for about 2 years. That's what we're going to use today. Green paper, blue tack, camera, that's it. The only thing that really matters is the lights. So if you spend a bit of money on decent lights, you can do this. We'll do it today, and it'll probably be a bit shonky because the lighting isn't targeted, but we'll see how we go. So anyway, we can skip that because I'll go into detail. And then this to me is the most complicated thing I've ever seen in my life. So this guy is a Microsoft expert. He uses his Surface Pro with a pen, and then he stands in front of this green screen with all his lights and his lectern, and so this is always hard to explain, he is writing on the OneNote that he is embedding the video of him writing on the OneNote in. So instead of saying, go to Resources tab and then click on this link, he does that for them, and then he shows them what to do. Who's still lost? You are. If you want to give it a Google, you can see what it looks like. Again, I'm just telling you this. I'm not expecting anyone to do it or learn it, but to me, this is like the pinnacle of complexity. I don't know if it's even beneficial, but it's definitely right up there as complicated.
You won't be recording in face, you'll be recording like self-direction.
Hmm?
No, I'm just clarifying. Ryan was having a bit of trouble.
Yeah, well, I think everyone is because it's terribly complicated. Do you want to try and explain to everyone else?
It would be like if you were writing on an iPad, right? But you're not filming from the iPad camera. So the screen casting the iPad, and then you are standing at the lectern, filming yourself right on the iPad.
And what you write on that iPad is to be
It's
put
what,
on
so
the green
what will
screen
come, well,
later.
Yes.
yeah, then you can just stick yourself, as your head somewhere on that screen.
Yeah, gotcha.
You're going to mash the 2 speeds together.
That's helped me understand how to do it better. So,
But what I think is that,
Yeah.
so is that essentially it's just doing screencasting, but
With the green screen.
with your
but the difference is that I didn't clarify. You're doing it live. So what we'll be doing is post-production removing the green screen. There's a whole bunch of 14-year-olds on the internet who are playing Fortnite with this technology. So if they can do it, I feel embarrassed that we as educators can't. So, but I've done 2 of these, and I was like, oh, cool, and then I stopped because I was like, well, I've proved my point. I sent it to him. He was like, that's good. And I was like, that'll do. Thank you for your time. But yeah, so the tricky part is you're getting it done live. So you need a camera connected to your camera, it's connected to your laptop. It's multi-point, complicated. All right, at this point, this guy's funnier than me, so we're going to watch his description of how to do a green screen on the cheap. His approach is different to mine and costs more money, but apologies to just show a video, but when someone does it a lot better than you, you've got to use what they've got. All right, and then we cut off the subscribe to me bit at the end. Thoughts? Doable, not doable?
Doable. I just don't know how to do the lighting. I still don't know where they go. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to make it the lighting particularly clear.
Yeah, no.
I just don't know what to aim with. And then
Yep.
also the video editing I'm scared of.
Well, then I'll hurry up talking, we'll do it. So his lighting system is way too complicated. I don't know why you'd need a backlight, as you saw in the picture before. So I just went on eBay, typed in cheapest photo lights possible, and they call them light boxes. They're just what he showed, like a thin white transparent thing over lights, and then they project light in an even fashion, and that's all I've ever used, and it looks better than most people who do it professionally. Other people might say like you need a hair light or a backlight, but to me that more than works. So if you were, at this point I'm pretending that you're like, I'm definitely in, and you can all nod in a very adult way that says, oh yeah, for sure. So you can use paper like what we're using, or paint, or fabric, or you can buy this thing, which is what PewDiePie uses, and so it must be good. So I bought one. If you're as tall as me, you'll need to modify it because it's too small. But basically, you just pull it up, and then you push it down, and then it's good. Trust me. Then you'll need some lights. So we talked about that. I don't really understand iOS or like ISO, the camera effects, but basically you want soft light. You don't want heavy light. You don't want spotlight. You want sort of diffuse, broad spectrum, white, not warm, but white light, if that makes any sense to anyone but me. The worst thing you can do is have blonde hair like my wife, because her hair reflects green, so she gets this weird like green hair and looks awful. The other thing you can do really badly is, I'm thinking of one particular video we just did, stand too close to the green screen and then there's shadows and it looks terrible. Anyway, long story. And then once we get started, this won't matter to you. I've got an app called Green Screener, and it shows you sort of predator vision, what your green screen looks like. So you'll be able to check your quality. So if that's what you want to do, I'll get you to set up where you think the best lighting is and do your own green screen. And then we'll check it with this app and sort of see who did it the best. And then you can shoot a video and then we'll edit it afterwards. Camera, just use the best thing you've got. I used the webcam in my old laptop on top of a fridge for many years, so that's more than acceptable. Now I've got this fancy one because everyone else at the conference has one as well, so I had to get the same one. In terms of editing, I use this, which costs about $300. The reason I use it is it's like editing. If you can make a PowerPoint, you can edit in this software. You drag boxes onto things, you press S to like cut it, and that's it. Briefly, I tried to show off and use Premiere Pro. I can use it, just don't ask me how to because it's probably forgotten. I did a course on it or whatever. But those are the two sort of expensive best practice options. What we're using today is cheap worst practice options. Who cares about that? I imagine you all know how to workflow videos. You know stuff, then you talk about it, then you edit it, and then you publish it. Yeah? Publish it on Microsoft Stream, ClickView, YouTube, Vimeo, whoever, whatever, wherever. So I hope we get to that step. So, weird photo. Strange story. My wife was being filmed for the 7:30 report. They're doing like a documentary on how hard teachers work. And so then they were like, what do you do? And she was like, oh, my husband does this weird stuff where he films things. So that's the ABC reporter filming us.
Using your kit.
Using our kit, yes. So this is what I use. So that's the green screen, $130. That's my out-of-stock priceless wife. $60 lights, fancy camera, fancy microphone, fancy tripod. Most of these things will be a lot cheaper if you're a normal heighted person. That tripod's like top of the range because it needs to be really high, as you might imagine. But as is true, if you look, those are boxes under the green screen because everything just needs to lift. But hey, we are a oppressed group, tall people, just in case. Don't let anyone tell you any different. This is what I did before, so it was $96. Painter's tape cost money. I went to the art department, said, give me some blue tack and some green poster paper. I had a laptop webcam on top of my fridge. Again, that was a very functional tripod at my height for many years. And you don't need the cat, that's optional. And you don't need such a crappy room as I've got there in the background. All right, so I've talked as quickly as I can. How did I do for time? Oh, we got heaps of time. All right, so we got at least 25 minutes. At this point, these are your three options, which I realise is the overly wordy text, but you can try and set up your best studio in this room by yourself or with a partner or whoever you feel. If you want, you can just use the example footage that I had in the middle little QR code, and you can try and edit on your iPhone or in Filmora. And that's the third option, using Filmora if you've got a computer. But at this point, pretty much I'll stop talking, you'll start doing. If you want to show off, the challenges are you want a video behind yourself, so like find an old To Kill a Mockingbird clip, talk over it, something like that. Put a GIF behind there, put an image behind there, put a PowerPoint slide behind there, something like that is your challenge.